Better get my stuff together. Right. What do I have here? Good morning, everybody. Committee, thank you guys for coming. We need to execute a roll call. Morning, I'm Johnny Martinez.
I'm Barbara Boyd.
I'm Rick Snow.
Sherry Jones.
Pat DeVivi.
John Freya. Ed Bowles.
Ken Martinez.
Cynthia Nana.
Great. And we need to approve the minutes from the 21st. And I know the agenda said October 10th, but it's actually October 5th. So does anybody have anything to add or take away or need mention in the meeting minutes from the 21st? No, nobody? Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
I'll just make one comment on them, and that is that my name is mentioned on the second or the last page of the minutes, referring to programs or program. And I want to clarify that I was talking about architectural programming as opposed to programming of activities in the facility. Okay? Small thing, but I wanted to make that clear.
Okay. And for those who want meeting minutes, let me know afterwards. I can make sure you get a copy afterwards. Okay, and how about the meeting minutes for October the 5th? Any changes? Oh, I'm sorry. We need to vote on the minutes for the 21st. Do we have a motion to accept those meeting minutes?
I move we accept the minutes with the changes that were mentioned.
Okay. We have a second? Okay, thank you, Ed. Let's look at the meeting minutes from October the 5th.
To adopt.
Second, all righty,
Who seconded?
Pat.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So now we have a review and discussion of public, oh, you know what? Yeah, we'll do a review and discussion of public comments, stuff that we've read from the past and any committee member inputs that you have. I know, Ken, I know you made some copies and Ed, you made some copies, but if you want to speak to those, that'd be great. Pat, you also had something you mentioned to me before. And I think, John, you were mentioning something earlier. I don't know if you want to speak to that. But Ed, you want to start with yours first?
Sure, if I can find them.
How about Ken? While he's looking.
Well, my comments are, too long to go over, so I hope that you can read them. And, just, I think, there are so many separate items that we could discuss them separately as we go along, but, I just submitted them for the record and for future discussion. If anybody has any questions about them, I can answer those.
Okay, do you want to maybe just, is there anything maybe you can dumb down for the
Summarize.
for the folks that are visiting today?
I don't, these aren't working, right? I guess.
Is the mic on?
Are they on? I can't hear it.
Is there a switch? There's a switch on there. Is it on the top?
Working now? No. Well, I'll get started anyway. Pardon? Okay. Um, some of my major points was that, you know, this is an agricultural community and we would like to retain that agricultural and we'd like to retain that agricultural feel for it. And whenever we build anything, whether it's restaurants, bars, or anything else, you know, we always have to consider impact about traffic, about congestion, about the rights of the people that live in the main corridor on Corrales Road. You know, there are residential homes on Corrales Road, and we want to make sure that, you know, their input is considered because of the traffic issues that come with growth and economic development, including this building. We identified a lot of important ways to get village input, and I listed them for those that were at the meeting last time. You know, there's a lot of electronic ways of obtaining feedback. I think the most important thing is that this project go forward only with the most widely you know, widest capacity of feedback that we can get from the village residents. You know, all of you have your own issues in particular, whether they be around, you know, the horse community with their issues or others. And you know, we want to make sure we hear from everybody. And there are a lot of people that have strong feelings, but don't come to these meetings or don't go to any meetings. And somehow we have to capture those comments as well. I think everyone's comment and opinion is valid, and we need to make sure that they're documented in some way. So I would encourage everybody to be thinking about, you know, what you want us to know, and document that in writing if preferable. We're going to hear from Sherry about electronic method by which to capture your comments, which I think will be helpful too. Another comment is, do we want to consider this to be a regional facility or a village facility? Right now, it's being billed as a regional facility for the broader region, Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, and beyond. And my argument is that it ought to be a village facility as opposed to something that, you know, would be, you know, catering to larger events that would bring in a lot more people into the village. Another fundamental issue is the current design is reflective of a major theater space. About 70% of the current architectural design is devoted to theater space, which includes, you know, stage and seating and green rooms and dressing rooms and storage and all of that. And I think we need a community space for meetings, for education, for classrooms, in addition to what is there. There are 2 classrooms right now, 1 meeting room and 1 large gallery. But I think we need to be thinking about the complaint I always hear is that there is no meeting space in the village for, you know, meetings that we all have with our community groups. So that's the comment about the design in general. Let's see. I think we need to be thinking ahead about the management of the building as well, and want to make sure that whatever, you know, we've been talking about an anchor tenant. I question whether we need an anchor tenant. I know the argument for that is that we need a steady tenant in order to financially support the building. And that may be true. I'm not in that business to know, but I question whether we do need one. And if we do need one, you know, what kind of competitive bidding process are we going to have for that tenant to be able to compete with others, you know, to be the prime or anchor tenant of the building. I think there's so many groups from the PTA, you know, the elementary school. All of us who belong to different groups, you know, would utilize a large meeting space, for gatherings, but also for entertainment, whether they be dances, concerts, that sort of thing. And we want to make sure that the design takes that in consideration. I'll defer to Mr. Bowles about the architect that we talked about at our last meeting and the need for that. I think we may need a traffic study to determine, how impactful the traffic will be once we have a fairly large multi-use facility, especially as we enter and leave the property on Corrales Road. Parking is always an issue. Fortunately, we're going to have a large parking area next to it, which will help ease that. So more than anything, I would propose that, that this process of this committee be an inclusive, diverse, transparent process. We want to hear all of your opinions and we want to document them and make sure that they're included in whatever ultimate design there is for such a facility.
Yeah, and just so you know, we we have the meetings on Thursday morning just because there's so much going on in the village and people have families and the kids and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of happens that just Thursday mornings is what works. And so that's not, we're not trying to keep that out of the public by any means, but that's one of the reasons we want to be in here with the Zoom call. And then Ken spoke about the traffic issue. I did speak with Nancy Perea. She's a state Department of Transportation engineer for our district. And she did say that, that they would appreciate communication with them because if we build something, then they necessarily have to do a traffic study. And we could impose, some kind of traffic controls that we might not be wanting. And so we have a few things going on at the same time, a few new projects coming on, the house on Corval, the new gym, the new restaurant that just opened. And so I'm concerned with traffic. And so I think it's important that we speak with them. Yes, ma'am.
What was her name?
Nancy Perea. Nancy Perea, and I can give you her contact information. Yeah. Yeah, and she so she said she appreciated. I did email her prior to this meeting, but she's been out. So I haven't heard back from her. But whatever I get back from her, I'll be sure to share with the group. I do that. So Ed?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wrote 3 sets of questions and comments. The first one is, it refers to the state designated arts and cultural district that we have here in the village. Quoting from an online piece about that, it says that it's an artisan district that aligns with the Corrales Main Street District, the existing Corrales Business District, and Corrales Road Scenic Byway. And goes on to say, the vision for the district is anchored in the unique rural agricultural heritage of the village that draws visitors and tourists to the area. So then I ask a rhetorical question. Since the vision is anchored in the rural agricultural heritage of the village, might we expect our public arts and cultural facility to feature that heritage? If so, how? Through the building design, I ask, through programs, or whatever other means. I'm just trying to open the topic up. Second, we've been into traffic already. I simply contacted Steve Grohlman, who works for WH Pacific as the village on-call engineer. He's not a traffic engineer, but his firm employs traffic engineers. However, to date, as far as Mr. Grohlman knows, nobody involved in this design work has contacted them about traffic impacts. Finally, I just inserted something that might be useful in the long run for the village, and perhaps it's not too late to try to apply it in this project. I'll just read it as I wrote it here. It may be helpful for committee members and village staff to check websites of and about the Institute for Participatory Management and Planning. They train people in what's called systematic development of informed consent, a consent building strategy. We got this training while I worked at the city of Albuquerque. While strategic development of informed consent is an intensive process to conduct, its principles are easy to understand and can inform anyone who serves the public. It can help resolve conflicts. And I wrote that because it seems to me, and I think to others on the committee, that this project got going without enough involvement of the public. And so maybe the effort to involve the public needs to be redoubled. And I think checking in with this system is one good way to get started on that. That's all.
Okay. John, do you have anything?
Yes, I agree with Ed. I believe that the work of the last committee is certainly condemnable. I mean, is certainly admirable, but I think one thing we forgot to do, or the last committee did not do, is gather community support. Does the community support such a facility? And if so, what does it want to see in that facility? I kind of feel that we're tasked to approve a design that we don't know what the community wants. And then comes back to us later on that there's some things that we never incorporated, or it's something that the community didn't want. We're doing something that's really not in the best interest. I think we need to go back and do a survey and figure out what the community wants and if they need to support this. I don't want to run into something in the 11.5 hour that we didn't ask folks that this was wanted or needed and what was needed. For the gym, for example, we did a community survey to see what facilities that were wanted for Parks and Rec, and bathrooms at La Entrada Park, other facilities, programs, and that's why the new gym came about, because there was community support.
Pat, do you have anything to say?
On the same, they've covered several of the things, but on the same idea, given the size of Corrales and size of theater, with sufficient research done regarding local theater experience, this is essential for all new members. Every local theater, including Chemo and Philpott, plus the studio theater, should have been canvassed regarding existing seating, total seat count, percentage of seats filled versus total, number and type of programs presented, that is drama, music, lecture, number of tickets sold last year for each type. This is all the research so that it would help us to know about the size of the theater. And it is wise to speak only to the program manager or director and not just the person who answers the phone, because they usually don't have all the answers. And the other question was the Corrales community polled on what kind of productions they want to see, on what they want to be done at this center? And whether the theater's filled 100% of the time or less, we know the traffic problems. And then financially, I think somebody touched on that. If it is found that to financially support the theater will have to be filled most, if not all of the time, an expensive program manager will need to be hired to do this. Or if ticket prices have to be substantially increased, this will make attending programs expensive for the community members. So there are a lot of problems we're seeing now to include the community and to ask the community.
Sherry, can I switch over here? Because I know I want you to speak to your other stuff. So,
Whatever you want me to.
yeah. Cynthia, do you have any inputs? Got nothing? Okay. Mr. Snow?
No.
Nothing? Sherry?
Barbara? Does Barbara have any-
No, I'm gonna.
Is this working?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I volunteered, not sure why, but I did, to try to aggregate all the data that's been sent in and to put it in one place where we can keep it and archive it for any kind of future use. It's really difficult. I'm just gonna be right up front to use handwritten stuff. That means someone has to type all that in, and that's not gonna be me. So I did everything that I could. And then I thought, how could we, what would be a really easy way to start sending stuff out to get more input? And I think someone gave me a list of all of the organizations that we should poll. That's an easy thing. We can send over a form. So what I did is I worked on two things. I got information from the previous committee that had input from mainly the Arts Council, the music, and who else was it? Music. Arts? Yeah. And what I did is I went ahead and made a spreadsheet of that. So we have all of that information right there at our hands that we can always look at, and it's archivable and easy to find. Then I thought, okay, how can we get information out to everybody? And I thought of, Facebook, we've got a village Facebook page. I can develop a QR code, created a Google form, and it goes straight to a spreadsheet so that we have all that information right there. So I worked on the form and I've submitted it to the committee for their approval. It's just a draft. We can change it however we need to do it. But the nice thing about that is it's hard data. It's not just sometimes when you just get handwritten stuff, you visualize certain words and you kind of look at it just if it meets your view or it doesn't meet your view. When you have stuff that you can actually count, that's hard data. And that's a better way of collecting data, I think. But wanting to capture the voices, we gave plenty of room in the form for comments, because that's really important too. So we would have a place that we would have that. My goal with all this was to make it easy for village residents to answer it. Also, to distribute it to different places. We could distribute it to the village offices. We can distribute it to Facebook. We can, whoever anybody can think of, I'm all about distributing it. So the next step would really is looking at the form and looking to see if I captured everything. And if not, we can add to it. I've got QR codes that I've already generated for it that I can put on a flyer to pass out, and then also to put in Facebook and any other place that you think people may read. So I think we'll start getting more information from the greater community and not just people that will walk into the village office and write notes. Barbara and I even talked about going to the growers market one morning and just passing out a flyer. I'm happy to do that. So that's what I've done so far. And so I've aggregated a lot of it. The only thing that's really hard is the handwritten stuff. Now, if somebody wants to type it up, you can do it and I'll put it into the spreadsheet, but I just don't have the time to do that myself. So questions about that? Anyone?
So the translation is she's very smart. I saw with what you provided us this in your email was wonderful. I know that's just a lot of work. And so I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Well, I think it's going to help a little bit, and we'll be able to get more information, which we're looking at. Now, I tried to stay away from really heavy kinds of, architectural stuff like you're talking about, because I don't feel qualified to comment on architecture things. So I don't want to do a survey on that. I want people to ask me, would you use this? How would you use it? Would you go to this? Would you go to that? I thought that was more beneficial because we have experts to tell us that stuff that you're talking about. And I wanted to stay within the purview of what we have. And I think we also have to be mindful of what we're charged with this committee. And there's certain things that we have we don't have the purview over. That's traffic. That's nothing we've been tasked to do. I know it's an extraneous kind of variable, and it is going to come into play, but that's ultimately going to be when this building goes out to bid, or they actually do garner the appropriate plans. That all has to come in. They've got to do traffic studies. It has to meet planning and zoning and all that stuff. So I tried to stay away from those kinds of comments because I think we can pretty much say traffic is an issue in Corrales and we're all concerned about it. And that's something we should put in our report to the village. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think we have to keep surveying that, because I think sometimes people go down a rabbit hole with that and that's all they see that they want to do. That's my personal opinion. If the committee wants to put traffic in there, I will do that. The other thing, and this now I'm going into my personal opinion. My concern has always been, as a lifelong member of Corrales, is that we don't look to the future for some of the buildings that we do. And I'm going to use the gym as an example. When we first started Parks and Rec and we looked at building the gym, the first thing I thought and my family thought was it was way too small. But we were getting such pushback from the villagers that they didn't even want to have the gym because they thought kids didn't need that recreation opportunity. Well, things changed. This isn't 1950, 52, 53. We're moving in. There's kids have different interests. There's that Parks and Rec area stays very busy, and it's been a great asset for our children. Now they've had to expand the gym. So I think that when I'm looking at this performing arts, or I'm not going to call it performing arts, I keep doing that, sorry, multi-use facility, there's so many uses for this that can meet the needs for our children. We can work with the schools. And I think we should, I don't think we're going to fill it every day with 250 people. That's not a goal. But I think if we did have something that we wanted to bring in and a performance or something, we could do that. I see the bigger uses are going to be for the educational and with the classrooms, with using the auditorium to give trainings for people and doing things like that. That being said, my personal opinion is we should look at regional status only because that allows us to apply for federal, state, and county funds. That's huge. That's going to help us really build this. Without that kind of support, we may never see enough money to ever build this. And or if we do, we're going to build something that's so small and won't meet the needs 10 years from now. That's my concern. And I wanted to go on record and say that. So everyone knew where I stood.
Thank you, Sherry.
Mhm.
And I'm more of the school with Mr. Padilla, as far as wanting to gather, citizenry input and get something that's good for the village. This is not about my agenda or anyone on this committee's agenda. It's what we're trying to do for the village. We have a lot of people that volunteer. Mr. Wallman, I see you here this morning. We thank you for your service on the council. And I can tell you it takes a lot of time just for little things like this. So we really want to put something forth that everybody wants. That said, I did you say something? Oh, okay.
I'm not.
That said, I try to be transparent with everything. If you know me, that's me. The mayor wrote me and it was very brief and basically charged me to remember what this ordinance was about, was to complete a plan and not to create a new one. And so I want to read the ordinance under which this committee was formed. It's resolution number 23-57, creating an ad hoc committee to refine conceptual plan for the Corrales Education Community and Arts Multi-Use Center. Whereas the administration has received guidance from the initial ad hoc committee regarding creating a multi-use center to be built on the old Jones property. And whereas the administration has recruited additional citizens from a variety of fields and expertise representing different facets of the community. And whereas the committee's mission will be to complete a plan for the multi-use facility so the construction documents can be commissioned by the village administration. And whereas the committee shall be directed to gather further citizen input regarding the needs of the village that could be met by such a center and incorporate those into the final design recommendations. And whereas the committee will be comprised of 9 members with broad representation of Coraleños. And whereas the committee shall provide council with a presentation of their findings within a period of 6 months. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the village council, the governing body of Village of Corrales, New Mexico hereby creates ad hoc committee complaint, So, kind of like Mr. Padilla, as I look at these, it says to complete a plan for the multi-use facility, but I don't know that we've gathered enough input from the village, only just because now that we talk about this, we're getting a lot of feedback that I didn't know. And so I know that people in our administration, the village council, everybody, they do their best to get the word out. But for some reason, there's possibly a disconnect. So my response to the mayor, just paraphrasing, was basically, we're not trying to commit a new plan, but we just want to make sure we get it right. And while we understand that everybody does their best, me included, everybody on this committee, we do our best, we can miss things. And so that's why you always want to, invite another set of eyes over when you can. And apparently that's why we're formed. So I wanted to read this old resolution because it's to complete a plan. And that's referring to the original committee. So I asked Barbara Boyd, who was on the original committee, to maybe speak to that a little bit so we know what we're dealing with. And then also your inputs regarding the facility. Oh, yes.
All right, I thought one thing that would be helpful is to go back to the original committee's resolution from the council. And it was to create an ad hoc committee to explore the possibilities of the Corrales Performing Arts Center. That was the main purpose. We did seek input from the elementary schools, from 4-H, Music in Corrales, Corrales Main Street, Village in a Village, Corrales Society of Artists, Corrales Arts Center, the Historical Society, Parks and Recs, a few individuals in the agricultural community, the Kiwanis Club, the library, master gardeners, and Corrales residents. We quickly learned that having a performing arts center only was not going to fly. So we quickly pivoted to add the classrooms and the meeting space and a visual arts gallery. So that was all added based upon feedback from those groups. So we did try to pivot pretty quickly. Is it enough? Is it the right balance? That's still up for debate. I am on the board of the Adobe Theater. I want to be transparent about that. We have raised our hand and said we'd love to come back. But honestly, I'm a Coraleño. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's okay. We can stay where we are. So the Adobe Theater is in North Valley on 4th Street, just north of Alameda. And we have a wonderful relationship with our landlord, and we can stay in perpetuity. So we really don't have to come back. In case there was any confusion about that, we do not need to come back. And if it's not right, it's okay. I'm a Coraleño first. So I want to just be really clear about that. We'd love to come back. We think it'd be really awesome to help build an auditorium. We could bring our lighting and our sound. But again, if it doesn't work, it's okay. So that's my comment.
Excuse me. And as far as my inputs, I'm a Coraleño, generations. There's a lot of things in the village that have popped up over the years that maybe I don't agree with, but they're beneficial to the village. And so, you have to be honest about that. I am concerned with the village. I'm the traffic. I'm concerned with the size. When you look at the design, I do see there's some space for education and maybe some Corrales type things, for lack of better words. But as I've said, I don't want to make Corrales history. I don't want it to be something that, people look back and say this was Corrales once upon a time. I would like to keep that. So that's my 2 cents. There's a balance between what I would like and what Cherry would like, when Barb and everybody else on the committee. So we just have to find that. If the village wants a skyscraper, then that's what we'll do. If the village doesn't want anything, then we'll probably push that way too. So that's why we need you guys, your inputs, and I appreciate everybody on this committee, because I know that you guys are all vested. Y'all have family and their homes are here and all that. And so I appreciate all that. Do we have any inputs from committee members? Yes.
I'd like to hear from the audience. I think it was a productive part of our last meeting. And if there are any people out there who were at the last meeting, and some of you were, or anybody else who wants to put their voice on the table right now, I'd like to hear from them.
So I guess you missed when you were passing out the papers. I said, that's what we're going to do.
Oh, I guess you did say that. I kind of heard that, yeah.
Oh, no worries. Sure. Yes, of course.
Is there a way we can get a transcription of the audience of the Facebook meeting that I can add the voices that we're going to gather today into the spreadsheet? It's all about the spreadsheet. Sorry.
It's being recorded. I'm sitting in for Melanie, who's at a conference at the moment.
Mhm.
That's really more of a question for her. It is possible to do that.
Okay.
And I'd be glad to help her out and show her how, to kind of simplify it a little bit. But it does take a while to do the transcriptions, but it's possible.
That's great. I know I do it for my classes. I transcribe my classes. So that would be great. And then I can take I can capture what everybody says and make sure that it's done, because it's word for word. It'll come out exactly what they said instead of me trying to paraphrase things.
Mr. Curry?
Yeah.
Robert said this is being recorded.
Thank you so very much.
Thanks for that input. I know, from personal experience that those meetings usually take about a day or two for them, you know, to get back in the office and get everything done so they can post it. So any inputs from committee members or Robert?
Mr. Chair, it may be a couple of days longer. Melanie is at the conference until the end of the week. Well, I guess we're already at Thursday, aren't we? Wow, never mind. So
Well,
yeah, probably
regardless-
sometime next week she'd be able to do. get that
Regardless, thank
posted,
you for
so.
your help. Melanie's off in training and the mayor's also in another meeting this morning, so they weren't able to be here. But she did a good job for us in getting us set up. So I appreciate that. Melanie, wherever you're at. Thank you. And Robert, thank you for stepping up and helping us. But that link is out there, so you can always talk to us and we'll find it. That said, anything from the committee members? Sherry, do you need feedback from the committee to,
Yes, if anybody wants to change anything, I'm happy to add to that, to the Google form. I'm happy to do that. Do you want to send out a doodle poll or something? I don't know if you can even do that. Or you want to accept it as it is. I don't.
well, we should be able to do that here.
Okay.
So, yes,
We just, our architect member at the last meeting mentioned that maybe we needed an architect if we go ahead with the project. That knows about doing performing arts centers, has done those before. I think you made that comment at the last meeting.
Yes, there's no substitute for experience.
So I would like to not lose that. Let's just make a note of that, and if we get to that point, I think that was good advice, and I think we should spend the time and the money to get somebody really to look at it that knows what to do.
yeah, and Shin, you've been quiet this meeting, but I want to tell you, I appreciate your inputs about the education piece and all that. So thank you for that. Yeah. Anything else from the committee members? All right, that said, we'll open up to public. Please keep it to 3 minutes just because there's a few of you. If you could just give your name and then keep it to 3 minutes and I guess this is our official stopwatch now, as of right now. Yes, Mr. Walton.
Just a very quick suggestion. Probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and very good this, but a survey is going out to every member of the community on the comprehensive plan. And it may be that that's a vehicle that we use, you know, reach out to the community. I don't know if that's possible. That might be a suggestion. You really get broad base input.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if you guys know, but if for those of you that don't know, the council members are reaching out to the communities and having meetings for the, you know, the comprehensive plan. And I really encourage you to attend and
Tonight, District 2 in the reading room in the library.
free donuts.
5:30.
Okay, 5:30 to 7, Mr. Woman's
I want
And
to
the-
thank you all.
in the library. Thank you, sir. Did you have something? Oh, okay. All righty. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Tom Jones.
Yeah, come up and speak. Come in, if you can say that in the,
I was just wondering, are we tied to this particular parcel of land, or can it be located somewhere on the periphery of Corrales to address maybe some of the traffic concerns?
that is something we as a committee had not discussed. I don't know, Mr. Curry, are you able to speak to that at all?
The property, owned property, in place of being that, the property that we own, and we have an apartment next door to it, that we also own, plus the recreation center. And property on the further end of the village, we do not have any. That side. And those properties.
And for all of you that don't know that, Mr. Curry's he's our village administrator, Ron Curry. So and he's also the sharpest dressed man usually in any room I'm in. So
And also maybe consider off-site parking with shuttle.
we did talk about that. So thank you for that. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. That's absolutely.
Okay, my name is Mary Ann Bashoik. I'm a hydrologist. I'm president of Hydroscience Associates. I've lived in Corrales for 14 years. And it's changed a lot, but so far pretty much for the good. And this project, it seems to have sort of leaped into being without a whole lot of the basic things that you would normally expect to be done first. Like a lot of, public input, a decision on the very basic level of what it is we want. I mean, do we want something at all? Do we want meeting rooms? Do we want to be a regional theater? And then we haven't made those decisions yet. And listening here, I've heard people say, well, we need to have a permanent tenant in order to pay for it. And then somebody else was saying, well, no, we don't really need to have a permanent tenant. And doesn't seem to be a lot of true understanding of what the project would mean at the various levels. I've worked with a lot of communities on their water development plans and that sort of thing, which admittedly is different than what we're talking about here. But you need studies, not just a traffic study. You need a water study, a police study, a fire protection study. You need true budgets on what these different things would cost. But I think at a very basic level, and people have said this today, and I applaud the committee for, your diverse opinions and all. We really need to think about what Corrales wants. I mean, do we want to be a regional theater? If we don't want to have a regional theater, then that cuts down a lot of the traffic problems that we would have. Do we want meeting rooms? I can see that we do probably need some meeting rooms and some classrooms and that sort of thing. But I was sort of surprised when a friend brought over an already completed plan of the theater with a 270, seat theater. We shouldn't be at that point yet. We should still be talking to people and doing studies and deciding what we actually want before we start designing theaters. So I think I'll write something up and send it in, but I just wanted to put these few thoughts out here. And I do thank you for all that you're doing. But I'm a bit concerned right now.
Can I give you my email?
Sure.
Would you send it to me?
Of course.
There you go.
But we need to do more than having an email. I mean,
You said you were gonna write something, I try to capture it.
so could we get often Roadrunner will the wasters will put brochures or surveys.
Yeah, we're trying to work on that right now.
PNM or somebody else. We need to try to reach more people. A lot of people are not aware this is happening,
We're trying to work on that right now.
but it's good. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
anybody that wants to send me stuff, I'm trying to get it.
Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Hi, Sherry.
Hey Doug, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hi, John.
He's my elementary school friend.
My name's Doug Castile. I've lived out here since 1957. I'm a Coraleño, true and true. I'm not against this at this point. I concur with the young lady that talked earlier that I think we need to have more information about it. I am a little surprised that all these other plans have gone ahead already, including the plans. I have a paranoia because of our sister community, Los Ranchos, with all the problems they've had with that 3- and 4-story building on 15 acres on the corner of 4th Street and Chavez Road. That bothers me. I want to make sure as a watchdog of this community, we never have anything like that ever occur here. Now, I have some concerns too. I am not for a regional facility like a lot of the council members are. And I'm also concerned about Corrales growth, its future. I'm old enough, I'm staring down 75, and I've seen a lot of changes. Communities go from one type of community to another. Preserving some of the essence of Corrales is of utmost importance to me and many of the people that live here. But
I want to make sure it's done properly. I want to make sure that the quaint ambience of the old church in Corrales, which has been sort of a performing arts space and used for a myriad of different things, doesn't lose any of its attraction. The intimacy of a concert that holds 150 people where you can actually see the people up close that are performing or speaking is tremendously important to me. But my concerns basically will be, I'll follow this through to be a watchdog, and I'll talk to fellow communities too. At this point, I don't think I see anything terribly nefarious. And with what Ron Curry said, and Tom Jones said, nothing's etched in stone. You're damn right things can be changed. They can go to a different other location at this stage. From my real estate past and my history, I know that's a fact. So anyhow, I've introduced myself. I'll see you all again.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Marg Elliston, 53 years in Corrales. I was 10, not really. But I thank you all for thinking about this building, and I've talked about it a lot with some of you. Maybe I've screamed about it, but I too was shocked when I saw the plan. It was all set in stone with this theater. And because I'd really love to see us do better. I think we can really create a building that reflects Corrales and our attachment to the land and the sky and maybe some trees if they don't fall over. But I think we can we can design a facility that's a lot more flexible than what we have now. We can have, we don't need to have all those fixed seats. We can have some chairs like we use at the old church. We can make more flexible room for dancing, for singing, for performing than this fixed seat design that we're confronted with right now. So I encourage us to be creative and to talk to some really great designers. I am not one, but figure out a way that we can honor our environment and make a really wonderful, flexible, multi-use facility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Morning all.
Good morning.
It seems to me that the initial assumption for this was that it needed
Your
to be.
name, sir?
Oh, my name is Greg Polk. I live on Sagebrush Road. It seems to me at the beginning of the process, there was an assumption that this had to be a regional facility to attract the financing necessary to build it. So my question is, what kind of analysis was done relative to a regional facility versus a purely local facility?
Mr. Curry, are you smart on that?
Everything that happens public is a regional. If you look at our recreation, our gymnasium, you come all the way from Wisconsin. We have a lot of people in the interaction. So that facility, Parks and Rec facility, is a regional facility. And people who come here for dining, not a place, they go through. They don't all come from Corrales. They have a usual restaurant. You come to the growers market. It's a regional growers market, even though it's all the Corrales for the market. So as we proceeded into this, not so much looking at the financing aspect of it. The fact of the matter is, people come to Corrales and want to place. Mercantile, for instance, most of its business comes from outside of Corrales. On some days, most of its business comes from outside of the state of the country. So Corrales is a regional block in all aspects, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's recreation, whether it's the old church.
Yes, sir.
That wasn't really my point. I understand that point. My point was, to what extent was that assumption driving the design that we now have? So, yeah, and I'm just here for information. I'm not trying to be critical of whether it's a regional facility or local. It's just, it seems to me that that assumption at the beginning drove a design that is now creating the controversy.
So
Good.
I'll speak to the prior committee. I would say that when we talked to those original groups, so principals and Music in Corrales, the different arts communities, they envision things like an elementary school graduation or an elementary school play. So they envision that as a size. Music in Corrales could sell way more seats than they do right now in the old church. They're currently limited to 150 in the old church. When they actually performed in Los Ranchos, they set up over 200 seats. So they know they can sell more than 150, and they perform 8 times a year. There were other groups who could see candidate forums or movie night, or all kinds of things that could be done in the auditorium. So I'd say we did try to take input from the village or members of the village or groups in the village to kind of see what might be a use of that. We different people saw lectures, and we even talked to CNM at one point, and they were like, yeah, we could use that space. So I don't know that it was totally funding. We were trying to take the input of those who might use.
Well, I guess a follow-up question is how flexible, and I know you're not prepared to answer this question, but how flexible are those funding sources to different scales of facility that might be more responsive to community needs and less responsive to a scale that would accommodate larger? That's just a general question, because the village needs those external resources. I understand that. How flexible are they to the kind of input that I'm sure you're going to receive as a result of this process? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'll go again. With respect to what the Honorable Mr. Curry said, is that what we want right now is more people to come to Corrales, more growth. It's heresy for me to say this to a municipality or to any city council who promotes all over the country growth. God forbid any industry, but we don't need that at this moment. The regionalism that we have now is fine, but that doesn't do anything to diminish traffic or anything else here in Corrales. Yeah, it provides an outlet for people from Rio Rancho and from Albuquerque and from Valencia County to come down and use a gymnasium. Is that what we're striving for? I don't think so. Not the people in the village. Now, as council members, you're trained forever and ever.
Yeah, we're just committee, sir.
Committee members, okay.
Not council.
Sorry, slap me. But anyhow, incessant growth, incessant improvement is not something I think the majority of the villagers in this community want. Thank you.
Could I ask a question of Mr. Castile?
Yeah.
Please.
Who's talking? Yes.
Sir, I'm just wondering, I'm thinking about what you've just said, and I'm thinking about what if there was, I need to rephrase this. There are a number of businesses in this village who rely on locals and people who live outside the village to sustain themselves, right?
Yep.
So if we purposely limit access to facilities in Corrales to an extent that puts those businesses at risk, are we doing a responsible thing?
Let's not do that. Let's not limit that.
And I would add, in a situation in which You don't allow people to come in from outside and support businesses in the community. You may have to provide enough residential density in that community to support its businesses, meaning that thing in Los Ranchos. I mean, that's why it's there. It's to
And boy,
support-
there's a lot of irritated people in Los
I
Ranchos
understand
right
that.
now
I
too.
understand that, but there's a balancing act to be.
There is a
made here.
balance. We're not going to deny anybody to come use these facilities that are here now, but how many more do we need, particularly on a regional scale? We should talk about that amongst our community
It's a
members.
good question, and we are hoping to do just that.
I know, and I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, of course, Jerry. Yeah.
I can't see that.
Hey Doug.
Sir, I don't think you're actually promoting ID card checks at the mercantile.
No, not very good. Go ahead, Sherry.
I understand what you're saying better than you know. I mean, I remember Kraus when there was no one driving down the road.
Or
past
when
the
we had 1,400 people.
Exactly. And if they were driving down Cross Road, we thought at 10, we thought, where's the party and why didn't they invite us? So I get it. But I think we also have to remember that it's not just people from outside Cross that are causing congestion. We have a lot of children's groups. We have lots of organizations. So a lot of, I envision, and personally, I'm just going to speak for my family, that would be our vision of this, is that it would really enhance the organizations of Corrales. If the 4-H kids wanted to come and learn how to give their practice speeches for their stuff, they have a perfect place to do it. So we're going to be still having traffic, but a lot of it's going to be internally. So I do think we do have to deal with the traffic, but it's not, I don't think we need to be so afraid that everybody in the world is going to come flying to Corrales. I think we just need to really look at providing for our citizens, for our very vibrant art community. Having a gallery that we showcase things, I think is fabulous. So I just wanted to comment that,
Well, I have to confess, I'm part of the regionalism. I'm a docent at Casa San Isidro. And we get people from all over the world there. But I am concerned about checking how many more of these things we need. I'd like to slow it down. It'll never stop. You can't stop progress, or can you? Is it good or is it bad? Is the glass half full or half empty? I was here when the Adobe Theater was its inception. I remember. And I know your landlord on 4th Street. And so I remember when 4th Street was a 2-lane road. But that's a long time ago. I'm aging myself. But anyhow, I'll see you all again. We'll have this conversation and discussion. You know my feelings. I'll represent maybe some of the feelings, input that I get from other villagers. See you next time.
And your mother was a fabulous artist.
Thank you very much.
And my cousin is, her mother-in-law is Miss Santiana, so if you ever need any. Okay,
You are.
my name is Rudy Miera. I'm from East Meadowlark, where a facility recently was allowed to open that terms itself an urban deli in an agricultural community, okay? I would like to start off by going off of Ken Martinez's comment about it appears that the first draft plan has 70% of the space dedicated to the performing arts factor. I'm still a big believer that honesty is the best policy. If indeed that's the way it looks to you, and it looks like that to me, then it seems to me you would have to take out the C for culture and the E for education, and you're left with an A. In other words, let's be honest about things. I think it's extremely important that we not put off for tomorrow problems that we face today and are recognized. If I'm a big believer in history, a couple of years ago, the city of Albuquerque had and still has a very popular soccer team called the United. And the issue came up, it was presented by Mayor Keller, who I agree with most of his proposals and stuff, but there were concerns raised by the citizens regarding crime, other issues that weren't dealt with, drive-by shootings, speeding, traffic density. Those were part of the factors that came into play when a vote was taken. And at a vote of 2 against 1, the voters rejected
that stadium that they were proposing downtown. And public safety always will trump athletics, entertainment, culture, etc. That was their concern. So in fact, I'm here to with my fellow watchdog, who I've never met, Doug Cassidy here, to point out that, in fact, let's take a look at recent history of our sister village right here in Los Ranchos. They're calling it a monstrosity. This palindrome community was allowed to install 204 affordable units for people to live in with only 101 parking spaces. I guess they never heard of the concept single person, you know, or in fact, that doesn't even add up to one. Say you assume that everybody's a couple, that means that there's 4 people that still had to find their parking places somewhere else. And you're right. This is an issue. It's so much of an issue that in front of the city council, a vote was coming up 2 days ago where the city was going to donate land for this proposed stadium for the New Mexico United soccer team. And I think they counted up the votes and they decided, you know what? We're going to defer the vote. We're not going to, because they knew it was going to go down again. Let's just face facts, okay? So I think that what everybody's spoken about, there needing to be more communication, more input. I don't believe that traffic issues are something we can kick down the road somewhere. I think that if you take a look at the statements in the recent Corrales comment by the non-opposed members of the village council, speeding and traffic density is on everybody's mind. And it's not something you can consider at the last minute after you already have a facility well, poorly, or well designed to come in. It's actually part of the whole issue. I guess that's my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Julie Dyfee, and I'm a 30-year resident of Corrales. And it's been really great to hear all of your assessments and all of the information you put out today. Of course, the traffic, that's going to have to be dealt with. We all know that. The biggest question I have that's remaining is that I think that there needs to be more of a needs assessment among the arts community. We have businesses on Main Street that are solely devoted to art. And the gallery is kind of a misleading term because I understand now that everything is kind of fluid. But I would hope that this doesn't compete with the very difficult time most artists have making a living. And that instead would somehow support the businesses that are already here. And I also don't feel like the performance theater needs to be this large. I know it can be used for, let's say it's an election year and someone running for a very important office in the state might want to come and have, a speech to the community. But I don't think that's what it's for. Performing Arts Center is for performing arts. And to make this, it sounds like we're just conflating into it'll meet the needs of everybody on anything. And I think there's going to have to be more of a focus as we put it out, as you put it out more to the public of exactly what are the main needs that support building this. And as has been mentioned before, the location is a problem, and that's just because there's limited space. And we want this also to reflect the character of the village as it is. People from all over come here and say, did you go to Corrales? That's so beautiful. The adobe, the old buildings, the people are so friendly. And we are. And most of us do live in adobes if we've lived here for any length of time. And we want the history of Corrales to be told through the arts with this Performing Arts Center, right? So I think we need to do more assessment, maybe amongst the businesses, if you haven't already done that. And get their input. They're threatened. People are threatened if they aren't asked. And you don't want that to come back and bite you at the last minute. And I think you're all doing a wonderful job, and thank you for holding this meeting today.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Veronica Duchek, and I grew up on Coronado Road, and now I live on Cinco Milagros. I was away for a while and came back, and so it's nice to see what was and have been very involved with the community and come back and see how it's evolved.
We can't hear you.
I don't know that I can do anything else. I'm 2 inches away from the microphone.
Pretend we're your kids.
My question is one of the process. I heard you say that the mayor wants us to refine the plans that are already out there. Now, I need clarification on that. That's just something I'm hearing. Because the reality of a project where you spend your money, and I don't know where it's coming from, and we need to talk about that, if you could explain that to me. The money for all these traffic studies for the architect, et cetera, where did they come from? Have they all been spent? What does it mean if we get this new input and we need the changes made to the plan, and we need those to come from traffic studies, et cetera, that you have to pay for? I understand that the community is very willing to do a lot of volunteer work, but it's going to take a lot of time and money to make this happen. So I would like to see who here can address that for people so that they really get an idea of the reality of how this can come together and when. Because if you are planning it for now, and it's really not a reality for another 10 years when we can get the money, we need to be planning for that 10 years ahead.
So the first few seconds of your comment, the mayor wasn't here, but he just walked in. So since you referred to him, maybe you want to just repeat that part again? I just wanted her to repeat what she said so you could hear it, because. Okay.
Trying to come up with an idea. Put together a plan. And show ready. So when funds come available, they're here to be had. We found that worked really well at Scanner. Put together the plan, get everything, put together, ready to go. And when the money comes available, well, that answer your question?
No, not entirely, because to get that plan to hand to someone to be shovel ready, it's going to take all this input to happen. And I think you're thinking we're going to live with most of the plans that are already in place, the architectural plans. But I think
that was sort of the plan.
that was what I understood from the letter he read from you. But as I hear what everyone is saying, we need a lot more thought process to get into the plans. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not addressing that at all. What I'm saying is to meet the needs of what everyone is bringing up here, it's going to take some changes to the plans. And I'm asking, do we have the funds to make those changes to the plans? That's all I'm saying.
Mayor, and just so you know, what she's referring to is I read the resolution. And I think you're referring to that, the 1 point, ma'am, which is I'm sorry. Yes, the committee's mission will be to complete a plan for the multi-use facility. So the construction.
The task was to refine. See the title?
Right. But this is our ordinance. So that's what she's referring to. All I did was just read it literally. So. Okay. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Pat McLernan, and Sherry, you've done an awful lot of work in this, and I think for transparency of the people who are involved, is there a way that we can get on a listserv to get communications from this committee? Do we send a note to the city clerk, the village clerk, that would in turn put us on a listserv so that we're part of this, and at least we'll understand what your discussion is if we've had a chance to even look at that?
That would be great. Because I would like to have it information that I can garner, not necessarily all coming to my email, because I get
Yeah.
1,000 emails a day as it is.
Yeah. no.
So yeah, I think we'd have to ask the
Yeah.
village.
Well,
Mhm.
we can look in, and the second thing, as a retired architect, almost every project that I would dealt with, and it started with a pro forma. It's the financial obligations of a project that include maintenance and operations. And that sets a budget, and often the budget determines what you can build. I mean, it's kind of backwards. I read comments by the mayor in Corrales comment. It said that it's an $8 million project, and even though we have no money for it, there's 4,000 households in Corrales. And so that equates to about $2,000 per household, which is important. Another method he suggested was financing it over a 30-year period, which really, if you look at that, we end up with a $36,000 a month mortgage on an $8 million, on a $6.5 million project. And we pay $5 million in interest over the term. I don't think in reality, I think that was just a comparison that he gave as a method for raising the money, but he's here and could answer that more clearly. But again, dollars often, bottom line, control what we build, whether it's regional or local. It will determine what we can afford to build.
So it was a conceptual plan. 26, 27 years ago, this was an idea that was presented, Evelyn Losack. I don't know how many of you guys remember her, but she talked about something like this, and we thought it was kind of like, pie in the sky. It would never happen here in the village. And then in about 2006, excuse me, I'm speaking up. Yeah. 2006, 2007, a local artist by the name of Carmine DeVivi, who was very involved in the growers market in the village and as an artist, came to the council and said, he talked about a performing arts center at that time, because he had been responsible for building one out in California, or being involved in one in California. And he said, this is something the village needs. We have art, we have actors, we have schools, we need education. We need a place where people can meet. And as others have pointed out, we need a place where people can party and dance. And those are all great ideas. And so when I had the opportunity to get elected as mayor, and we had this huge chunk of land that we had to do, that we didn't have to, we wanted to do something with in commemoration of the Jones family. It seemed like a perfect place. It's in an area that's centralized to the village. We thought, well, we'll come up with a plan, design, something we can modify as time goes by, and present to an architect to actually draw us what we want, but we have to have some kind of an idea. And it had already been formulated by the Parks and Rec Committee. Parks and Rec Committee got some input from people who, and I'm not even sure how they chose who they talked to, but they got some input and they came up with a drawing, which was pretty much of a, kind of a general drawing. And we presented that to the initial group. And one of the things that was tossed out right away was the commercial kitchen. Said it was inappropriate to have it in some kind of a facility like this. Well, okay. So that was tossed out. And ultimately they worked on several different plans and came up with what was done by the end of April when their term ran out. And I said, okay, we need to have it refined a little bit, because there was some criticism about the fact that perhaps we hadn't asked enough people. So we thought, okay, let's get another committee with another spectrum of individuals to add some input. By this time there was some misinformation out there. and people were confused as to what we were thinking of doing. Again, as I stressed frequently during all the meetings with the original group, we don't have any money at this point. We are going to search for federal money. We're going to search for state money. We're not going to do bonds. We did raise the issue of a bond when we had a bond hearing, because it seemed like a perfect time to perhaps get the input from the community and see if they were interested in spending some money to move ahead with a final architectural document and construction plans. And then, well, that's basically all we could probably get. But that's kind of where we are. We're sort of in limbo. We don't have a plan that everybody has agreed upon, but you got to start somewhere. And that's what we did. We started with this. We actually started with a vacant chunk of land that we felt like we could use for a good purpose for the community. If the community doesn't want it, if people don't want to have something like this where they can meet, they can congregate, they can sing and dance, they can have a play, they can have a school program, they can listen to a forum of legislators and candidates. If you don't want to do that, I don't have a problem with it at all. I mean, I'm a retired orthopedic surgeon. I have really very little to do with the arts. I mean, I grow a lot of stuff, so I have more stuff to do. I have more involvement with the growers market. But if you don't want it, you think it's too much money or too big for the village, then we won't do it. That's called democracy. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that background, Mr. Mayor.
It's my impression that the comprehensive plan has been asking a question about this type of a facility. So you will get that information. And it's one of the things that we specifically had mentioned in discussing the comprehensive plan with the people. We also discussed about the idea of having increased density in the farther northern part of the village of Corrales for people who are older, who don't want to live on 2 and 3 acres or 1 acre or anything like that, who want to live in a smaller community, but stay in the village of Corrales, and how that could happen. Well, once we have some input, then we can look and see how we can make it happen. But, it's just trying to be, pushing the envelope out there and planning for the future. Because, I mean, I like it here. I don't want to leave. So I'm selfish.
Mr. Mayor?
It's your turn.
Mr. Mayor? can I
Yes,
ask a
sir.
question? When can we expect to hear from that comprehensive plan committee?
I don't have any control over what they do and when they do it, but they have told me probably by February or March.
That's pretty close to our end date.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, good to see you, Jim.
Oh, well.
I think we're far from being in a black or white or yes or no situation. But I think I would like to get an answer to the question that was previously posed. And that is, what are the limits or what are the guidelines for refining the plan? Because I've gotten kind of 2 messages so far. One is there's no resources to do any design, and it sounds like it's kind of a take it or leave it. On the other hand, the mandate of the committee is to refine the plan. So if you could give us an insight into how you and maybe the mayor understand the extent to which we are in a process of refining so that it will guide us as to how we provide input.
So
Thanks.
I'll speak a little bit to that. So we've had this discussion internally with our group, and the concern is there that, maybe we don't have all the information to make a decision like that. Kind of like where, as Barbara talks about, when you form a group, you have your forum and your storm, and we're kind of like, well, we had to go back to the beginning after receiving some community input. That's been my communication with the mayor, is that, I'm finding out that, a lot of people don't know about it. That said, I think as we find out more, and as people are raising concerns for or against, then maybe we can make those assessments. I think the mayor's correct in saying, If it's gonna work for the village, great, we'll try to make it happen. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And so I think we're kind of having to find that out again. You know, we looked at the original plans and, you know, we've had some concerns. Some people don't like it, some people love it. So we're kind of back there again. So is this are we gonna be able to tweak these and make these work, or do we have to start again? That's kind of our conversations here. So all that to be a big, I don't know yet. And I'm just being very candid with you. You know, like I said, if you guys know me, I'm candid with you. If I don't know, I will tell you. And I rely on the people in the committee to give me inputs, and they're all very good about that. Yes, sir.
Is this something that's gonna be voted on ultimately by the village?
Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
For any money to be spent, have to go. If these guys can come up with decisions, they will present that. No money can be spent until it's approved by the council. They even approve money that we're given. We didn't mention the federal government, unless it's somebody like Bloomberg, Disney. I think they would approve that. So everything has to go through a rubber, basically.
So the member they don't ballot.
Like on.
Well, yeah.
For approval of the village,
Yes.
I would not anticipate. Yeah, mentioned like listed is fine, you're right. Talk about it, maybe bond issue, bond questions, but it's probably one of those things.
Yes, ma'am. Cynthia.
As a point of interest,
Hold on a second, sir. She had her hand. Go ahead, Cynthia.
as a point of interest, curiosity, who paid for the original plan?
Mr.
John Forrest,
Pro bono
basically.
by
By
the movie theater?
a guy named Mark Steinkamp, who worked with Bill.
Okay, thank you, no cost.
I knew it.
As I'm aware.
Pro bono.
Okay. Thanks.
Expecting to get more work.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I feel like we're spinning our wheels. And it's no criticism of you, Mr. Chairman. I think you're doing your best here, but I don't want to lose sight of Bill's suggestion of that. I think that survey is really important since it's a whole community survey. And I think that maybe our time would be best spent thinking of what questions that maybe we could get them to allow us to include in there. And then we'll have input, and then we'll be bona fide. We'll have data behind us that yes, the community does want it, or no, they don't. But I feel like we're just sort of, I don't know how we get from where we are now to the next step.
So to address that, that's something we've been talking about. It's something that's been on my heart. It's almost seems like the more I'm digging, the more I'm finding, as far as, with things that we need to do. So I have to agree with you on that. But at the same time, we know we kind of have our marching orders. And so I think we need to exhaust those. I think we're gonna end up having to sit down maybe with the mayor and council and maybe reset. I've been involved in multi-million-dollar contracts where halfway down the road, someone has to say time out and we got to stop. And so I've seen that in my career. And so I'd have to say I agree with a lot of what you're saying. And I think it's to find a way forward. We just have to have some information. And I know I don't know everything. So that's why I rely on people to give inputs. And that's why I ask the committee members pretty much every week, let me know what you guys have to say, because, it's, you guys are, the village is entrusting you to come up with a plan. And so. Sherry and Barbara both have done a lot of work extensively. I've got to say that. If I were and just being honest with you, if I were to talk about where we're at in the spectrum, Barb's here and I'm here. But we work really well together, I think. And I appreciate everything she's doing. And she's very very ethical, and I appreciate that. Sherry, your work is amazing, so thank you for that.
Thank you. I sent it by email. In answer to Johnny's emails that he sent out, I put all of the information in there for you to look at and that I have so far, and then trying to get as much as I can centrally located so we can use it. So it's usable data. Trying anyway.
You, sir, you haven't seen you speak yet.
My name's Alan Brim and I live on West Ella. Unlike most of the people in this room that I'm aware of, I've only been living in Corrales for 1.5 years. And maybe I could provide some perspective on this. Number one, most of the people in this room that I've heard stand up have been here for years and years and years, which is good, but that's a limited input. 1,400 people you told about. All right, well, there's 9,000 now. So it's the old story. I came from Johns Island, South Carolina. You can't get more rural than that. And that place has exploded. I taught economics for 20 years. I know, I taught lessons of the unintended consequences of growth. Many lessons. I understand that too. I understand the traffic problems, but I will say this. Why did I come to Corrales? It's a beautiful community. I'm not a farmer. I'm not a horse person, to be honest with you. I am very affiliated with the arts. My wife's an artist. My deceased wife danced at the Joffrey Ballet. I taught at a high school for performing arts for 20 years in Charleston, South Carolina. I know about building a theater. I know about Black Box. I know about a lot of those things. And I'm here to say this. I've left 2 meetings, or I'll leave 2 meetings about this. And there seems to me there's a lot of people who are opposed to this in principle, but I've never really heard somebody stand up and say, well, I'm against this center. They talk about traffic, they talk about this. Yeah, there's a lot of things, but are you really in your heart against it? My opinion, and maybe I have an advantage of not being here. I talk to people all over, whether they've been here 7 years, 3 years, 1 year, 1 month. It's irrelevant, or 30 years. And I find a lot of people in Corrales like the arts, and not just visual arts, performing arts. San Ysidro is a very nice facility. I'm gonna tell you honest, it's not a good performing arts. I don't enjoy a concert there. I've been, I'm going there tonight, as a matter of fact. The point is, it's not very acoustically endowed. And my point being is that I would love to see a center. What I hear is 2 things here. First being, maybe I hear a lot, and I don't disagree with complaints. The plan may be too large. Maybe you don't want to reach it. I don't necessarily disagree with that. What I want a place where I can come down the hill. When I was at that place at West Montreux watching the last music in crowd, there was a lot of people. And a lot of them just came down the hill or up the hill or wherever to enjoy the music. And a lot of them were from Corrales. They weren't from, I've been to some people's houses here. I've purchased stuff from people sitting in here, at their art tours and things. And my point is this, is that I would love to see some sort of venue. I see a huge problem with this plan because there's a lot of people opposed to the size, the scale, whatever. I mean, I'm not because I like it like that, but I understand that. And I would certainly be willing to have somebody look into, do you need a fixed seat theater? Can you not do like a black box theater with the movable seats? You can have all your performances. When I was at that school 20 years, most of the theater performances were in the black box, but it could be used for many. Dance, there's several dance studios in town. You're right, all these elementary school plays and things like that they could use. So there are ways to scale things down. And believe me, I understand the traffic situation too, because nobody wants that. But I think a lot of the traffic supporting this is going to be coming from Corrales. I think a lot of it that would be. Because I think music in Corrales, most of the people are from, not all of them, but a lot of people are from Corrales. And that's just my opinion on that. And I would, I mean, personally, I'd be willing to pay extra taxes or whatever for that. So I mean, that's just my opinion. And I don't, you know, the trouble with, I'm not criticizing anybody who's been here forever, but you end up hanging out with everybody that's been here forever. So how many new people do you know? I mean, how many people that have been here 2 years do you talk to regularly? Or 1 year? Why don't you ask people why'd you come here in the first place? This is an artist community. It may have been rural. And, you know, and it still is a rural community, and I understand it. But I also look at everybody that's been here for so long, why, and then you complain about how it is now. Well, complain to your neighbors from 30 years ago. I mean, who sold the land for 8,000 more people to show up here? You know, I sure didn't. It wasn't mine. I'm living where the celery grew celery up West Ella. And so, you know, this is what happens with progress. I totally understand that it needs to be mitigated. I mean, traffic concerns are important. Maybe they want to scale down the design. I know you don't want to hear scaling down something now because there's already this big plan. But there are other, I mean, maybe redo the plan, maybe sit down and, it sounds to me like everybody here wants to redo either, but you have to say, do you not want any plan at all? Or do you want to redo the plan that's there? This is what I'm not hearing. I leave a meeting with my wife last time thinking, you know, a lot of people just don't want the Senate. Now, I don't know if that's true
Sir,
or not.
sir, your time is up.
Well, I did. I mean, that's my perception. I felt like there were people who did not want it at all.
Sir,
So.
hold on, let's keep it. Let's keep it.
Hey, folks,
Sir, your time's up. Mayor,
could we
Yes.
please, one at a time and stick to the time limit? Please.
you get an extra one.
3 minutes.
Oh,
But for you-
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take up somebody's time.
No, go ahead.
You know, I'm not an artist, you know. If anything, I'm more of a farmer. I ran the growers market for a couple of years before I got on the council. And, but I've heard all these things over the years, 26, 7 years. I heard from my village administrator that there was some concern about us being like Los Ranchos. This is not going to be Los Ranchos. You know, we're not going to put an apartment complex. You know, my wife would absolutely kill me after she did a couple other things. So that's not going to happen. So there's no increased density in the village of Corrales unless we hear from a large population of older folks who want to have a place set aside so they can have like cluster homes or something like that. I mean, you know, we don't have the system available here in the village that would allow that to happen. And there's several reasons why, and that's one of them. Nobody wanted the density, but now we have to address that issue of sewer because water tables are, you know, they can be impacted by the poop that goes into the ground. Anyway, that's another story. So, none of that has been decided. None of that has been planned. And none of that will happen without involvement and comments from our council and from the population at large. Okay. So this is not a Los Ranchos de Albuquerque type of thing. It's not going to be, you know, pushed forward. You know, I never anticipated, quite frankly, I never anticipated so much objection to something that I thought, and I'm pretty conservative, I thought was such a good thing for the community.
I think there are suggestions.
So what?
Suggestions.
Oh, okay. Because see, we grew up, I was in Texas for a long time and my kids went to a place called the Warehouse Living Arts Center for acting classes and art classes. And it was an old warehouse in downtown Corsicana, Texas, which is on the interstate between Dallas and Houston. That's why I was there. And that was probably the best experience that they ever had, that acting class that they took, the different programs they were in, the different performances they were involved with. And we asked them several years later, our daughter had already graduated from college and our son was in college. We said, what did you learn as you were growing up? What was the most important thing that you learned while you were growing up? And they said, you know, Dad, the best thing was our involvement with the Warehouse Living Arts Center. They felt very comfortable around crowds. They could speak in front of people. they acted, they sang, they did all those things. They developed an appreciation of art, although it was, you know, modern stuff, a lot of modern plays, not the cultural stuff that many of you probably enjoy. But I mean, it was a whole lot, it was a quantum leap above where I was. So I thought, well, that's great. So that was part of the rationale. And if this is too big, which, you know, I said to him in the beginning, I said, it's got to be 15,000 square feet or less because you only have an acre. It can't be more than a third of an acre. That's 15,000 feet. And it can't be more than 26 feet tall. Well, I never anticipated they'd go right up to the margin, but the original thought was a black box theater, and they were wanting to put it over here where P&Z is. And that didn't fly. But, and that was years ago. So it doesn't have to be 15,000, but in order to have some of the stuff that many of you would like to have, like a dance hall, a place where bands can play, you need some square footage. And so you need more than, like, you know, even though they do say you can use a 24 by 24 dance floor, you know, you want more room than that. You'd like to have, and in fact, that gallery has 2,000 square feet. So there's a lot of room to have a party, to have a dance, to serve food. So, you know, you start thinking all these things. Oh, what I was getting at before, you want to build what you anticipate you would like to have. So 26 years ago, they built the gym and it's too small. So we're moving on to build a bigger gym. We'll take advantage of the older gym and turn it into a physical fitness center, and, you know, do all the things that you do in physical fitness centers and make a special deal for the members of the village. But so, you know, it may seem big right now. 10 years from now, you may think, gee, I wish we had added a few more feet. I used to build barns on my place, and one farmer told me one time, he says, Doc, whatever you build, double it, because in, you know, 5 years, you'll wish you had. So that's all. But we don't have to make it that big. If you guys don't like it, I mean, you know, you don't like it. If you guys don't like it, say that. You got it. But part of the deal is, one of the things I've learned over my 77 years is that when you make a decision, you have to stand up and tell them what your decision is and why you got to that decision. So you got to make a decision. You got to say why you made that decision and what you want. And that's part of refining our planning. And I know a guy who used to really speak up, God damn it.
My husband, who's my late husband, Carmine
You know,
DeBeebe.
Carmine spoke
mentioned
up
earlier.
very loud. I listened to him.
Yes, you
He's a
did.
good friend of mine.
Thank you.
Does anybody,
That's all I have.
thank you.
Following on that comment, I would just encourage the committee members in seeking input to avoid questions that make it appear as if this is a either or choice. I mean, it sounds to me like we have a pro bono plan that, you know, with all best intentions, has unfortunately polarized the community. And I think we need to be doubly careful not to reinforce that polarization and turn this inadvertently into a black or white either or choice. That would really reinforce the fact that this is a refinement process. And I think the mayor has reinforced that in his own way.
Well, I'll in defense of the committee members, everybody pretty much is very objective in their thinking and trying to put their inputs in. And so no, but I want you to be assured of that. Everybody has a voice here. We respect everybody's voice. We're neighbors at the end of the day. And so that's what we're trying to do. Yes, sir, Mr. Mieta. And does anybody else need to speak? Because I'm sorry, we've gone along already. Can you make it quick, sir, please?
Okay, and I just wanted to start off by saying that I concur with my fellow parishioner, compañera Veronica Dubček, that I didn't like what I saw. And it all brings it back to something that happened one day when I was a teacher. And I taught in an alternative high school called School on Wheels. And one day I came in from lunch and the secretary handed me a telephone thing. And she says, you got to call this guy back. He says he wants you to contact him because he wants to be a guest speaker. And I say, Antoine Predock. I think I've heard of that name, but I don't really know who he is. But I called him up Well, before I called him, I started talking to people and they says, you know what? This guy's a world famous architect. This guy designed the San Padres, in San Diego, their stadium. He had something to do with the design of the Opera House in Melbourne, Australia. Anyway, what happened was he said, I want to come in, I want to give something back to the community. And he came to work with my 16-year-old ex-gang and current gang kids, and he volunteered and he gave workshops and he told you how to design things. But most of all, the lesson that came out was he said, I want to tell you why and how you go about the design process. He gave me a concept that I learned from that, as well as my 16-year-olds, and it's that form follows function. In other words, you build something, you build anything, as long as it serves what the need is. And so that lesson that my students learned was the same lesson that I think has been underscored by people who say, get input, find out what people need, find out what people want, and you'll get something that doesn't polarize the community. You know, when he designed the La Luz apartments here on the west side, the thing that people said is, we like our mesa. We don't want it to blend in. And so he designed apartments that they're world famous because they blended in and you didn't even notice them when you drove on Coors. Now you know you can't see them anymore because they've been covered up. But I strongly urge that we get as much input from as many factors as we can, because in the end it comes down to this. No hay nada mal que por bien no venga. Translates to say that there's nothing bad that some good can't come out of it. Bless us in our process.
Okay, I'm sorry we've gone long, but you know, I know for a lot of you, you don't have opportunity, have audience with the mayor, so that's kind of why I wanted you guys to be able to speak with him and ask questions, Is there anything we need to cover? Are you?
I do.
Then we'll just, everybody look over the forms that Sherry generated and see if she needs to tweak them at all.
And for the form. So if you have any changes at all, let me know and then I'll get ready to go forward with passing it
And
out.
then do you think, Sherry, any of those questions could go on the big survey or not? Or would it be different questions?
I don't think we can, I don't know. I don't know what you would like for us to do on that.
I don't know.
There's a question on there right now.
Okay.
And so, and I think we're just looking at, we're still working on it. And
Yeah, that would be.
I gotta go.
I'm already like.
Go ahead, Barb.
All right, I just wanted to ask the committee, our next meeting is set for November 2nd, but Johnny cannot be here. So I'm wondering if we want to rethink whether or not we meet that day. So that's my question to the committee.
When would you be able to be here so we can move the date?
I won't be back until about the 8th.
Right.
November 8th.
Did you talk to the mayor about the possibility of them sharing that?
I have not. We have not talked about that at all.
He mentioned something.
That'd be
I'll
good.
talk to him. So what do you folks want to do? You want me to broach that conversation? With the mayor? Is that fine with you,
Yeah.
Pat? Ed, is that fine with you?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Ron mentioned the mayor chairing the next meeting. Are you guys fine with that?
Because it's gonna be out of town. Johnny won't be.
Okay.
I think we need to reschedule when you're here.
Schedule.
That's what I think.
Okay, so we got 2 people want to reschedule.
I'm fine with the mayor.
I'm fine with mayor.
I'm fine.
Mayor,
I'm fine with, okay with the mayor.
Are you fine?
okay, then I'll ask him, Ron. I'll ask him, we'll probably do that. Okay, so I wanna thank you guys all for coming. Obviously, there's some lot of unanswered questions and probably a lot more rose up and again, I'm just gonna speak on behalf of the committee. Everybody's doing their best to try to get the information out there and try to come up with something that's works for the village. So we'll try to continue to have the meetings via Zoom. We were here because of the early voting, but we're going to try to continue this. I'm really going to try to keep it concise. Today went way longer than I wanted to, but for obvious reasons. So do I have a
Move.
a second? All right. Thank you all for attending today. Have a good day.
Thank you, Johnny.
I love it.